welcome to another episode of Wizard Goes Boom. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about railroading and its relation to sandboxes. So let's face it, railroading has very negative connotations. Very few players want to be put in a situation where their decisions don't really matter, or something's going to happen no matter what they do or what they don't do. A true railroad is a situation where no matter what the players do or don't do, something happens or something doesn't happen, or they're being led along a linear path, to the point where even being led along the linear path can mean that your characters don't die. They get script immunity. And railroading is especially disliked in old school D&D style gaming, OSR style gaming. That's not to say that railroading can't be fun. It sure can. And surprisingly, a lot of old D&D adventures use some aspect of railroading, so it's not all bad. Also, railroading can happen to a certain degree even in a sandbox, which is kind of the opposite of railroad. So how can railroading happen in a sandbox, you might think to yourself? Well, suppose you have an adventure hook where it's on a timer and there's the urgency right there, and then they either take the adventure or it disappears forever. That's sort of along the lines of a railroad. Another example could be, let's say, Keep on the Borderlands. Unless you greatly expand the module, eventually the players will have to go to the Caves of Chaos. Or if you're playing the Village of Hamlet, eventually the players will have to go to the Moat House. They'll run out of things to do. So you can see that even sandboxes like Keep on the Borderlands or Village of Hamlet has aspects of railroading in it, but it's not a true railroad. Decisions still matter, and the Caves of Chaos aren't going anywhere, so they can go there or not go there in the beginning, but eventually they'll have to go there. Some of the most famous D&D adventure modules use some aspect of railroading. An example would be the GDQ series, or it's actually an adventure path. Some people also include Temple of Elemental Evil in that, as well as Against the Slave Lords. So you have potentially 5+ modules that are connected to each other, going down a linear path. Within those modules, of course, there's a lot of player choice and agency, but there's meta plots involved, which is indicative of a railroad. Plus the fact that it is linear. You go from one to the other. You go from Against the Giants, and then from there you go to the Underdark in Greyhawk. And then from there you go to the Demon Web Pits to fight Loth. And these adventures were made very early on, 1979. Or just think about what a module is. It's a contained adventure with a beginning and an end. So a module itself is kind of a railroad because there is a clear line there from beginning to end. there's a problem to solve, and it needs to be solved if you're playing the adventure. This is probably why very early on in my career, playing D&D and even running it, we didn't really use modules too much because of how linear in nature they were. We would have preferred a sandbox where we can go around and do whatever we want. Some of the other famous modules are the Dragonlance series modules, which are a little bit heavier on the railroad. In one module in particular, the writer suggests that Goldmoon follow the adventurers around until they interact with her. So there is character death and choices within the module, but there's definitely a point A to point B, and certain things that have to happen in between. And that's just the nature of a module. It's the nature of an adventure path, that there's some railroading going on. And some are more railroaded than others. For example, the Dragonlance modules are definitely more railroaded than, say, GDQ or Temple of Elemental Evil. Again, that's not to say that these things can't be fun. A lot of these modules were super fun to play. Even being led along a sort of linear path from Against the Giants all the way to Queen of the Demon Web Pits, it was fun. It was a good time. Nobody complained. So railroading, or at least a moderate amount, is not a bad thing. And it's bound to happen for the sake of story. I guess my complaint about railroading would be the pure kind of railroading, where my decisions as a character really don't matter, and I might not even be able to have my character killed because the character is necessary in the party to move on to the next phase of the railroad. Usually, these kinds of things go with a milestone system rather than experience. Or it could be that there's a level up, an automatic level up every session, or at the end of the session, or once certain conditions are met. That's the milestone. Those I'm not really a big fan of. Again, they could be fun. Not to say that they aren't, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm a fan of the sandbox. But I recognize that even the sandbox can have aspects of railroading in them. And that's okay. I pick up a quest from one that was dropped by the DM, and I go along that adventure's path, point A to point B. I complete the adventure hook, and then I move on to another adventure hook. Even if I make a completely pure sandbox, the purest sandbox would be something like a West Marches style campaign, where the exploration of it can even be randomly generated through dice and tables. It could be that the dungeon master doesn't even know where the exploration is going to lead. There's plenty of tools out there for randomly generating terrain and points of interest and even adventures. Even then, once I agree to go on an adventure hook, there's a start and there's a finish. And the difference is, though, what happens in between is pure player agency. And it could be that in the middle of it, we decide to abandon the block hook. But a West Marches style campaign is something I'll get into in another video. So in the end, the final word would be, it's okay to use aspects of railroading within the context, I would say, of a sandbox. And it's okay to drop in modules to your world. And there's many fantastic ones out there from the history of Dungeons and Dragons, with varying degrees of railroading in there. I appreciate everyone watching. Sorry it's taken so long to get another video out. Been a little bit sick and been busy with life, but I'll try to make videos a little bit more regularly. Appreciate your time, and I hope everyone has a great day.